Welcome to the N64 Japanese Eye. As always, it's time to jump into the murky world of Japanese exclusives, and today we are taking a look at one of my personal favourites, Bangai-O. I absolutely love the cover of this game, and even on the back the great attention to detail is continued. Inside we have a full colour manual, and as you can see it's all in Japanese, but there is a basic story and controls as expected. Treasure are known for making some unique and often critically praised games. In the case of the N64, they released Mischief Makers, which make great praise but failed to sell as well as hoped. Then we had the Japanese exclusive Sin and Punishment, which I reviewed recently on my channel. The third game in the Treasure N64 trilogy is indeed Bangai-O, and we are once again given a game so unique and fantastic it makes no sense at all that this was kept to the confines of the Land of the Rising Sun. For those interested, the game's full name is Bakuretsu Muteki Bangai-O, which translates as Explosive Invincible Bangai-O. Like the fantastic Sin and Punishment, Bangai-O delivers one of the most interesting and little known N64 games, and contained in the cart is a piece of gaming brilliance that you simply must play to really understand. The basic story of Bangai-O is that you take control of a giant mecha called Bangai-O, and you have the choice of two pilots, either Ricky or Mami. You battle against the evil Cosmo gang who have committed the most serious of crimes in the history of video games. Fruit contraband. I kid you not. And even more wacky is that Ricky and Mami are unhappy about not having any fruit, and that pretty much sets up the basis of the game. Piloting Bangai-O, you have to traverse over 40 levels of insane fast-paced action. Each level has an end of level area guardian, which you must destroy in order to progress. To reach the Guardian, you'll tackle a wide range of enemies from other mecha to gun turrets and buildings. To mix things up, you can also switch between the two characters at any time, and they each have different attack styles which you'll need to choose between to work best for the situations and the enemies that you're up against. Ricky fires homing missiles and works better in large open areas. On the other hand, Mami fires lasers which bounce off walls, and because of that she is better suited to more smaller and more enclosed areas. When you first play, you won't see much of a reason to switch, but it will quickly become apparent that the only way to survive is to plan your attacks and decide which pilot works best in the situation that you're entering. As well as deciding which pilot to choose, you must also control Bangai-O itself. Bangai-O can fly, however it cannot hover, which means that you'll need to be constantly moving and adjusting the power of flight. Gravity is in effect at all times in the game, so learning how to handle Bangai-O can take some time, but after a few levels you'll be zooming around the levels with ease and even in the tighter areas of the game. That's given you a basic overview of the game, but it's now time to talk about the real mechanic of the game, and one which you really need to master as soon as possible. You can fire in 8 directions, and naturally the aim is to take down as many enemies as possible. Bangai-O's unique mechanic body comes into play here. When playing the game, you'll often be outnumbered and frequently outgunned. You can play the game using the cat and mouse approach, taking pot shots and then retreating, trying to lure single enemies towards you to take them out. This tactic will work, but only for so long. To master the game, you really need to learn how to best use the Super Shot ability. This move is a charge type shot, and it can be used to fire up to 100 shots at the same time. Not only this, but it will turn enemy fire against them, meaning that in total the charge shot can send about 400 shots, which literally fills the screen. So much so in fact that the screen will slow down to a crawl. This is an intentional design choice by Treasure, and it creates one of the most visually impressive scenes seen on the N64. Slowdown in games is often seen as a negative point, but here it's something special. Learning this tactic will allow you to take down multiple enemies at the same time, and when you can understand this game mechanic, the whole game really changes. Instead of firing at enemies, you'll be attempting to bring as many on screen at the same time in order to unleash a charge shot. That's because when you unleash a charge shot, you build up combos which are essential for unlocking power-ups. You need to be careful, as there is no period of invincibility after you take a hit, so if you get multiple hits at the same time you can get an instant death. But with the risks comes the rewards, because when you get combos of 100 or more hits, you get power-ups. They come in the form of shot damage, shot penetration and health. Choosing whether to risk racking up a combo or taking out individual enemies is part of the fun, and at times you'll need both approaches. The frantic nature of the game, combining Bangai-O's movement, pilot choice, an insane amount of enemies and combos, makes for a hardcore gamer experience. This is not a game you'll complete in one sitting, and there is a distinct learning curve, which means that after the first 10 levels or so, you'll really need to know what you are doing, as a second's delay in firing can mean life or instant death. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Yes, this is a 2D game, which coming out so late in the N64's life seemed an unusual choice by Treasure. Saying that, the graphics are not all that impressive to compensate. The backgrounds in particular are quite bland and at times could have done with a lot more work. Some also complain that everything on screen is so small. However, in my opinion, this actually helps the game, as you really need a large field of vision in order to decide when to unleash charge shots. I also think that there is no way in the game would have worked if it had been in 3D, so I can understand the choice in making it a 2D game. In terms of the sound, the explosions and sound effects are all great. However, the game's music is underwhelming and at times it can be annoying, especially if you're tackling the same level again and again after getting killed multiple times in a row. They only slightly tarnish the game's experience, however, so it isn't anything to write home about. Another minor gripe is the level length. There are over 40 levels, however they are very short in length, designed to be played in short bursts. The problem is that if you know where the end of level garden is, you can go straight to them, dodging most enemies in the process, which means that if you know where to go, you can complete most of the levels in under a few minutes each. There will be those of you thinking, hang on, I thought this was a Dreamcast game. To be honest, for many viewers you will be familiar with the Dreamcast version which the game was ported to. They made some minor tweaks such as the CD quality soundtrack, however they also removed the ability to get power-ups, which I think was a bad move. Visually, the two versions are very similar, and the intended slowdown is also present in the Dreamcast version. Now for the collectors amongst us, getting a complete boxed copy of the game can be a challenge. The reason for this is that there are only 10,000 copies of the game made, and it was only released in Japan. They do come up on eBay every so often, but go for a high price. And remember, if you're wanting to import this, you will need a Japanese console or a passport adapter. Bangai-O is unlike anything else on the N64, and it honestly offers one of the best gameplay experiences you can imagine. That may come as a surprise, especially as the graphics and sound are both average at best. However, this game is all about the gameplay, and it packs such a great challenge that I believe it to be excellent value for money, even when considering the high price it commands these days. It is a game of skill and patience that requires as much strategy as it does fast-paced shooting. This isn't a mindless shot fest, and there are at times an overwhelming amount of actions taking place on screen. If you've been wanting a game with a lot of challenge and unusual gameplay that you expect from Treasure, then you really do deserve to treat yourself to this hidden gem. So as always, the all-important question is, can you play this without knowing Japanese? And thankfully I can confirm that it's very easy to. Once you know the controls, you can quickly jump into the game, and whilst the text is all in Japanese, there is very little story to worry about, and you won't feel like you're missing out on anything by not understanding what is being said. If you are put off by the high price of the N64 version, then by all means play the Dreamcast version, however I honestly believe that the N64 version is far superior. So what are your thoughts on Bangai-O? Do you prefer the Dreamcast version, or are you one of the lucky people who has got to played or owns the N64 version? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time.